Buongiorno a tutti e bentrovati.
Buongiorno.
Buongiorno a Gianluca Dettori e a tutti quelli che ci stanno ascoltando. Anche se con qualche minuto di ritardo, cominciamo questo primo appuntamento. Io ringrazio innanzitutto Gianluca Dettori per la disponibilità a partecipare a questo primo evento, e a questo punto dovremmo anche switchare all'inglese, perché visto che abbiamo deciso, cioè la lingua di questo e di tutti gli altri prossimi appuntamenti sarà in inglese, per permettere insomma la massima partecipazione a questo evento. So, welcome to everyone connected to this event. That is the first of a series of inspiring speeches that we have decided to start in order to start this PhD program that we started this year in collaboration with the University of Bari in science and then aerospace engineering. I strongly believe that this topic, the aerospace topic, is a subject of enormous importance for the development of the local economy in the Apulia region. You all know that we are a small region in the southern part of Italy, but regarding the aerospace sector, we have a significant presence of local, national, and international companies that operate in this area, that have been operating in this area for a long period. But something that is characterizing the sector in the most recent years is that also companies that historically have been working in area not related to aerospace now can have benefits joining the aerospace sector and the aerospace technologies. For example, one for all, the downstream sector, the utilization of data coming from satellites that enables a lot of terrestrial application of such technologies. In this line, the speech that Gianluca Dettori is taking for us today will open, I hope, at least will open our minds to this kind of possibilities, because in order to make business, to start entrepreneurship, is important to have ideas, to know technologies, to know how to apply technologies also to other sectors. But it is also important to have the right tools, also economical tools, in order to make entrepreneurship successful. And in this series of inspiring speech, we will have people coming from different areas of economics, engineering, also architecture, because we would like to explain how complex, how heterogeneous is the area of aerospace, and we would like to give at least at a glance an idea of how this sector could be an opportunity for the companies working in Puglia, or the companies that would like to come in Puglia to work, but also for you students that started the PhD in aerospace engineering. You have to keep in mind that the results of what you are studying, what you are developing, they have to represent an opportunity for the practical application of companies, or practical application that could become new businesses. And that's it. Again, thank you, Gianluca Dettori, for your availability in joining us today for this speech. And as you know, we already been talking about the possibility of increasing our collaboration between Politecnico di Bari and your company. I hope you will have a new opportunities and chances to exchange ideas in the next future. So
yes, thank you very much, Francesco, and it's for me an honor and a pleasure to be here today. Let me start with a little bit about where I come from and what I do. I'm the founder and the chairman of an investment company. We have a base in Milano and an office in Rome. And our company is called Primo SGR. SGR stands for Investment Company, Società di Gestione del Risparmio. We specialize in venture capital, technology venture capital, so tech-driven early stage venture capital. We manage about 125 million euros around 2 funds. We invest in digital and space, so we're talking about space today. We have launched a space fund called Primo Space. It was launched just last summer after a work of 2 years. And so I will tell you a little bit about the story of this fund, but also how we see things as venture capital investors. As you know, venture capital is an industry that works on 10-year horizon investment periods. And a venture capital fund is typically from 10 to 12 years long. And so we are also called passion capital because we invest early, at very early stages of the company development, sometimes even PowerPoint stage. And we will come to that. And also, let's make sure that if there is any question also while I'm speaking, I would be very happy if you want to stop me and we can have a specific question, or you want to zoom in certain information, I'll be very happy to interact. Okay, so well, first of all, the scenario that we have in front of us. Overall, I think it's important to notice that there is something changing in the space sector, something that is radically changing. In fact, we are now talking about the so-called new space economy. And why is that? There are probably 3 types of factors that have an impact. One is regulatory, let's say, one is technological, and one is fundamentally cost-driven. The main thing that is happening is that the space sector is becoming commercial. It's being widely opened up to the private sector. And this change was driven by the Obama administration with the so-called Space Act, where fundamentally decided to auction to private companies the launching capabilities of the United States, which was something typically that only NASA and agency used to do in traditionally. And of course, we've seen SpaceX and what the impact that SpaceX is having on the overall space industry, I think, is in many ways. First of all, it's an impact in terms of the speed of change, in the sense that a private company like SpaceX operates, or Blue Origin, if you want to name another one, operates in a different kind of way, with a different kind of fast pace. Space missions used to be things that were planned for like 10 years, 15 years. Now are things that are, a continuous development, and we see, on a month by month, the information that the news that SpaceX is releasing about the amount of the technology challenges that are being solved. And so one is that it's really shaping a different kind of industry. If some of you maybe don't remember, but 20 years ago, we had the so-called the new economy in the digital sector, when the internet became something open to the commercial sector. That was 1994. And internet was similar to space, an infrastructure that was born into academia and the defense sector, that it's been used for years, and that scaled and then was adopted in the commercial sector, and the internet changed the world. And I think we're pretty much in the same phase in the space sector. We are entering into a new era where the picture is completely different. If we look forward 10, 20, 30 years, which is the horizon that long-term investors like us look at. Already today, the space economy is 360 billion, so it's already big, but we are talking that in the next 25 years, will grow by 10 times. And of course, the other input that SpaceX and Elon Musk is having on the industry is that he's throwing challenges that probably seemed unthinkable years ago. The idea of having a plan to colonize and bring 1 million people to live to Mars in the next 25 years, whether you achieve it or not, I mean, it's going to push very much the challenges that technologies will have to address in order to achieve these kind of ideas. And they have a plan, and today actually Elon Musk is the richest man in the world. And the second one is Jeff Bezos, which is the owner of Blue Origin, which is another space actor. So anyway, just to give you the idea that the background is, for us, there is a new opportunity for private operators, like for us, in the case of venture capital, of investing in new startups in this sector. And the other thing is that Italy is an important country in the space industry on an international scale. We are definitely in the top 10 international space industries, depending on how you want to look at it. More importantly, Italy has all the pieces of the value chain in the space sector. So we manufacture engines, rockets, ground-based stations, transmission components, mechanical, engineering, electrical. There is Italy is a large manufacturing economy. We have a lot of companies that, from the automotive sector, they naturally fall into aerospace applications and products. And so we had the opportunity to discuss this scenario with the Italian Space Agency 2 years ago. And it came out the idea of launching a fund, Primo Space, 80 million euros, that we'd invest in 2 areas, and I will come to that later. And this partnership with the Italian Space Agency became factual with an advisory contract with Fondazione Amaldi. Fondazione Amaldi is a technology transfer foundation that is participated 50% by the Italian Space Agency. And this partnership with the Fondazione Amaldi and the Italian Space Agency was instrumental to address one big question that investors had in looking at this potential investment when we were discussing it, which is the following: space is really an environment. So investing in space really means like investing in a wide range of different kind of sectors and applications and technologies and domains. And this is very difficult because we're talking about energy, we're talking about fuels, we're talking about sensors, we're talking about downstream applications, we're talking about satellites, all kinds of topics and domains that are really technically complicated. Now, the Fondazione Amaldi has all the engineering and knowledge in all these different sectors. So they work with us in the technical due diligence. And so we were able to, with our team, present a very convincing project that got secured the first 58 million euros of funding this summer, when we hit what is called in our industry a first closing. First closing for a fund means that since that moment, the fund can invest while we are still raising funds. So right now we are on one side making new investments from the fund with the money that we have, with the 58 million. But on the other side, we're still talking to investors and bringing new investors on board. And the idea will be potentially to hit a final closing of the fund next summer. So at that point, the fund will be fully funded with 80 million and ready to exploit the strategy. Again, if something is not clear or you want to dive in any of these topics, I'm very happy. There are some drivers in this market that are really driving change. One is cost reduction. You can summarize that in the fact that payload cost is decreasing on a yearly basis. So launching a kilo of stuff in space is becoming definitely more affordable. So space is becoming more accessible. Satellites, nanosatellites, 1 liter, 10 by 10 by 10. And on board of this technology, by the way, we have again this second driver, which is the new technology that we are shipping to space today. You can imagine in space there is still stuff orbiting that was launched there in the 70s when a hard disk was the size of a refrigerator. And now, on a nanosatellite, you put energy, you put high resolution cameras, radar sensors, infrared, telecommunication equipment, electronics, and it's all the cost of a few €100,000. So it's accessible to startups as much. In fact, what happened is that since this open up to the commercial sector of space happened in a big way, venture capital investment in space started to appear. And from zero, 6 years ago, last year was something like around probably $5 billion were invested in space startups. And there is at least more than 200 venture capital firms that have done at least one space investment. So we decided to launch this fund. Actually, we just announced a few weeks ago the first investment was 1.5 million euros early stage seed investment into Icospace. They're based in Torino. It's a spin-off from the Politecnico of Torino. And fundamentally, they do artificial intelligence systems for autonomous missions. And actually, tomorrow we'll be announcing the second investment. And it's a startup based in Lombardy, in the north part of Italy. You will be, if you follow us on the social media, you will know about it. Tomorrow there will be the press release. Downstream. So upstream is fundamentally all the technology that goes up into space to build the infrastructure. And downstream is all the Earth applications that we can build on top of the data and resources that we get from space. So fundamentally, probably we were initially expecting to see a lot of downstream applications, so we'll come to that. But actually, I have to say right now, the type of investments that we're making now in the beginning of the fund is upstream stuff. I mean, Icospace builds software that goes into a robot that operates on the moon or on Mars and things like that. Now, the downstream thing, it's also important. I mean, in the next 5 years, with the nano constellations, the mega constellations that are being shipped into space, I've seen estimates that say that in 5 years, every square meter of Earth will be photographed high resolution from space once every hour, all day long, and at night radar information and all year long. And of course, with this type of information and machine learning and artificial intelligence, you just can imagine the wide range of applications that we can build on Earth that are just were not just simply being doable before. We've seen applications in, of course, agriculture and natural resources and disaster recovery, but we've seen applications in insurance, logistics, marketing, just data. Of course, all the data you can pull out of this is incredible. I mean, I've seen startups that are trying to count the number of cars parked unsold in sales, in car sales, just to understand what's the sell-through of car sales globally today. And you can count these things with computers, and of course you can build new kind of applications that were not with the previous technology. So that's another big opportunity. So going to what we're going to do with the fund, again, we are seeing all kinds of things in the upstream sectors. Let's say all the technology goes to build stuff, so space hardware, materials, energy, electronics, robotics, of course, a lot of robotics, a lot of software and engineering. Then all the launch stuff, so rockets, orbital technology. Actually, rockets, we've seen the fund will be investing 80% of the 80 million in Italy, and 20% outside of Italy. And so we're already looking at the potential investments in other countries. And for example, we've seen in a few last months 2 startups in Germany with searching for more than 100 million euros to build launchers, launch services, launch technology, full stack. So it's really interesting doing this job also because we see kind of like the movement that it's happening around space startups, and it's quite how can I say, interesting. And of course, in the upstream there is also all the satellite and drones kind of stuff. And then there is also, again, the huge sector of downstream applications, and that it's going to be really interesting to see how this data can be used. I can only tell you, for example, one story that is fun that we tell investors. It's a startup in the UK. That, well, fundamentally, what they've done is the following: they have machine learning technology that takes satellite images, and the machine understands how to recognize oil tanks, so tank deposits, and by looking at the how can I say, the shade, these tanks, they have kind of like they have something on top, and when there is less oil, this goes down, and so you can see from space, you can see the shade and calculate how much oil there is in that tank. And so they calculate this data globally on a daily scale, on a daily frequency, and then they sell this data through Bloomberg to all the oil traders, because fundamentally they have the data of the current stock of oil on Earth right now. So it's quite interesting. I mean, you can monetize with new kind of application the amount of data, and also the diversity of data that is going to come down from space, and already is. Let me just point out also that there is this new generation of GNSS, which is what we used to call the GPS, and the Copernicus, and it's actually a new generation of data that is going to come down, that is going to be critical for certain kind of applications, for example, self-driving cars and industries like that. So in terms of the fund, we're going to be investing in the next 5 years to build the portfolio, and we will be making around 30 investments. And there will be 2 types of investments. One type is what we call early stage investments. That would be an investment of anything between 1 and 5 million euros on a company that is pretty much a startup that is pretty much in a already kind of like commercial phase. And as I said, Icospace is one, the next one will be announced tomorrow. And then we will do around 15, 16 technology transfer investments. And that is something very much we would love to work with you guys and the Polytechnic of Bari and the local industry and the industry internationally. I think as a fund, as an investor, we can bring on the table not only the money, but also the connections to the industry. Thanks to the Italian Space Agency, the Fondazione Amaldi, and the team that we have and the venture partners that we have, we can really access pretty much a lot of important internationally known space companies. So we also can bring this to any project. So we're going to make about 15 investments in technology transfer. That means bringing an idea out to the market with from the academic research or from the stuff that you can do, and you can do very well while being in the university, while having access to all the infrastructure and the know-how that is on the campus. You can really develop projects, proof of concepts, and it's a technology transfer is a process. I don't want to go into that, but as you know, there are different kind of TRLs. And the technology transfer fund, investments will be from even low TRLs, TRLs that could be 2 or 3 or 4. So again, I would encourage you to really consider, if you are, interested in this sector, to consider the entrepreneurial path. This is an industry that is going to really drive a lot of change, a lot of innovation, and a lot of opportunity for entrepreneurs that know how to master the technology. So having the two angles is a very powerful point of view to address, let's say, your future career. So what can I say? I mean, of course, it would be fascinating to tell you about the kind of things that we see in terms of deal flow. We receive projects from all over the world. I think sometimes next year we will start to release some stats, but there are really hundreds of interesting startups, and also very many in Italy. So, and then we also see some really, how can I say, far-looking projects in really strange sectors. How can I say? For example, I'm fascinated with one of the areas that I'm fascinated with personally is space mining. All the technology to mine stuff from asteroids, from the moon, from Mars. As you know, all the resources are there. We know we started to track and test all the technology to use this stuff, because if we think about the new space economy, it was interesting. I was in a panel recently, and there was a very high member of the Italian government talking about how they see it. And if we actually, in the next 10 to 20 years, we started to see a lot of people going into space because there is work to be done, missions to be accomplished. And again, this thing that, you know, stations and ground stations on the moon, there are many, many concrete now planned projects for this to happen. The interesting thing that the new economy of space, the new space economy, will be really something about, you know, the most diverse kind of needs of a human community having to live into space, produce their own resources, produce their own water, oxygen, hydrogen, fuel, materials. There is a lot of 3D printing stuff that we see of all kinds of materials. And again, mining, you know, will be one of the things. I mean, we need to extract the water. We know there is water on the moon. So how can we use that? We see people trying, working to build space factories that, of course, we will have to manufacture most of the stuff into space. I was told by a very important guy in the space industry that SpaceX has this meeting, it's like once a year, and they bring like the top 1,000 people they think are the most relevant into the space sector. This person is invited every year, and it was really fascinating and fun to see Elon Musk saying, "Okay, let's say that we need to ship 300 tons of stuff to Mars. Okay, so what do we put on the ship, you know?" And so, they start to discuss about, well, first we will have to send the machinery, the robots, then the robots, they will have to create the environments and the factories, and then we can send the first ship with the human people, and so on and so forth. But, again, when you start to think about something like that, it's about, the new space economy will be about doing an espresso machine that works in zero gravity. So, to conclude, let's say, my speech, and then be very happy to get any questions, is again, if this is so, that's the reason why we think in Primo Miglio the space could be, in the next years, a new, what we call, asset class for investors. A new big area of investing where a lot of technology, a lot of products will need to be built. In venture capital, there are some mega sectors like ICT, software, there is healthcare, there is biotech, there is impact investing, and I think space investing in the future will be a new emerging asset class in the investor sector. So I don't know. I mean, that was my presentation. I don't know about the timing, where we are.
Okay, thank you, Gianluca. You are perfectly in time. Thank you for this very interesting talk. So just a technical note for the participants. If they connected through the link, the WebEx link, they are not allowed to activate the video or the microphone. So please, for the questions, write on the chat that you want to participate, and we can give you the permissions to ask questions to Gianluca. So this is time for questions. Please interact with the speaker and go ahead.
So, sorry for interrupting. Since I'm a coordinator, I don't have to ask the permission. So I start breaking the ice with Gianluca. That I want to first of all say thank you for this, speech about the characteristics and mostly on the evolution also of the space economy sector. And also for giving us the picture that this evolution is opening the market to the private sector, and it's giving several business opportunities. My feeling in this regard, I have a couple of questions for you. The first one is that I have a feeling that the old space economy has been largely characterized by technology-intensive firms. Let's think about, satellite manufacturers or space launch companies. While the new space economy, which you were talking about, is spreading the business opportunities coming from the space, thus giving the opportunity to start a business in this domain, also without any significant technological innovation. But just finding, new ways for using existing space technologies or existing technologies. I'm thinking about mostly the downstream applications that you talked about. For example, to all those companies which are offering services based on data coming from the space, or based on space monitoring systems, for example, in the agri-food sector. So my first question is that becoming a matter of designing business models more than developing new technologies? What do you think about? What is the direction in terms of making business in the new space economy? It's a matter only of technology, it's a matter of only business model, it's a mix of that. What is the percentage of importance? And the second question, I think that it could be interesting for our PhD students to have your feeling about what are the most promising business directions and also research area that could be more interesting for the future of new space economy. So the first question is about the relevance of business model in this new space economy, and the second one is about giving us some ideas, some feeling about business directions and also research directions that you would suggest to follow for the next years.
Thank you. Okay, well, okay, so regarding the question of relevance about what it is, I think it's all about entrepreneurship. At the bottom of it is about that. I think university now in Italy, academia, like in many parts of the world, is now very interested in this topic, and how to bring this entrepreneurial approach, to the education agenda, let's say. So I think it's definitely about the business models, in the sense that it's like you open up a box, and there is something new in that box. With something new, you can do the new magic that was just not possible before. And I've just seen a couple of examples, but I'm sure you can search on the internet, and it's very easy to find very, very, very interesting companies and startups. They're popping up, as you said, all over the world. But again, consider that we start from a country, Italy, where you can, you have around all the pieces to put together that you would need to do fundamentally just practically anything. So what is relevant? The relevant thing is always the same in entrepreneurship, is first of all, identifying a big problem, identifying the problem. So, that's how I always tell to startups, really focus on the problem, understand the problem, who has the problem, how big is this problem, what's the implications of it. And if we solve this problem, and we own the technology to solve this problem, what's going to be the impact of that? And how can we monetize and bring value out of it? So, that's the always, typical, way of working of entrepreneurship. You can apply now all kinds of frameworks like lean startup kind of approach to things. So I think the thing, I can tell you what an investor will do when they make an investment at this kind of stage. It's fundamentally, of course, it has to be an interesting idea with a big potential in terms of market. But then at the end of it is how the team is dedicated to it, how good, is strong is the intention they have. And sometimes, again, as you said, it's not about core technology, but it's just about building applications out of it or services out of it. In terms of sectors, as you said, as you coming to the second point, I'm a big believer of one thing. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you should do something that you think is relevant for you. And there is, if you always ask to an entrepreneur, why do you do this company? There will always be an answer, because for me I was a musician. I love technology, so I started a digital music company. It was really natural for me. That was what I wanted to do. I put together all the pieces of stuff that I've been working on for years into a very concrete and solid idea. So I will start from that. Of course, there is a huge green field in downstream, and you well mentioned it. In downstream, fundamentally, you can really test and validate all kinds of business models just using this data, if you know how to handle it. And again, we could make lists, endless lists of stuff. And again, is the diversity of data and the correlation between these diverse sets of data that can build really exciting new applications. I believe somebody told me with, I believe, radar, you can calculate how much a field of wheat has grown in a day, how many millimeters, stuff like that. You can calculate with thermography temperature on the ground, and you can correlate these two images. So that it's a really, another interesting thing about this. It's a very, how can I say, multidisciplinary kind of like company that you need to build. They need to understand all the different, let's say, angles of a project like that. But definitely, it's really exciting. And the infrastructure that is going to be built is going to be massive. So really accessible at cost that is reasonable. Think about this. We were looking at projects in startups in Africa. I think in a matter of a few years, let's say no more than 5, every single bit of land in Africa will be covered with data access. You imagine what this can mean. In a few years, 2-3 years, build an infrastructure that, Italy took something like 30 years to build, and everybody's broadband connected. Think about banking, think about, anything, commerce, logistics, and all the rural innovation, in the villages that you can do with something like that. So I think that the beauty of this is that it's really opening up a new world. And if I was at your age, in aerospace engineering, probably I would bet half of you would want to do a company as you go forward. At least I hope. And in that case, you need to call us.
For sure. Thank you.
Some advertising.
Great. No, that's a good point, because this speech is also useful for inviting, students to think about making business, becoming an entrepreneur. So that's a good point. I know that there are a couple of questions. The first one is from Elena Ancona. Elena, can you activate your microphone?
Hi, yeah, can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, sure.
Yes.
Go ahead, please.
Really interesting. I have a couple of questions. They are more, let's say, on a curiosity level. I'd like to know if you think that the social return could be in any way compromised with the upcoming new space economy environment. Like if companies and startups would be more willing to seek, let's say, business profit and be less willing to invest in something which is maybe more useful for the society or whatever, but has a lower economical return. And the second thing is, if you think that in the future we will have like both the new space and let's say the old style with the agencies and organizations as we know them now, if they would be coexisting, or if you think that the new space, so that the private sector will just take over and let's say the business will.
Yeah. Okay. The connection sometimes was unclear. So, but I think I got the questions. The first question is about, let's say, the impact and how all of this thing will play out, let's say, for the social good in a large sense. But let me say, it's a very important question. And actually, there are many, let's say, angles of this topic that are very relevant for us as humans. We tend to think that space is an unlimited resource. It is not. For example, orbit, it's not an unlimited resource. For example, there are already studies and concerns that launching, tens of thousands of nanosatellites, low orbit in mega constellations will create big problems, might create problems in telecommunication, or also in non-telecommunication, in being able to let's say see the sky from Earth, let's say, things like that, So, how many mega constellations can we build in the planet? I heard people that are experts saying, no more than 3, and that's it. So that's a limited resource. If we have one company owning all the mega constellations, then we go into all kinds of, complicated scenarios. But anyway, so there are many topics that are ethical. I think that, if I try to give an attempt to answer your question, I think we will see a diversity of investors. If there is a diversity of projects and some are for good, there are a lot of investors that will come in, because in social impact investing is a huge sector in venture capital, very, very big. And so I think that there is going to be also big, how can I say, market for, let's say, space-related social good businesses. And let me say also that this is a general term of argument of concern for everybody in our industry. Every fund that we do, from now on, for example, in Primo Miglio, will be ESG compliant. So we will closely look at metrics of impact. It's becoming an important theme in general, anyway, for investors. So I am hopeful that it will not only be finance the commercial stuff, but also the stuff that has, let's say, good impact in terms of returns, social returns, let's say. But we'll see. And the second question, let me recap. The second question was about, can you remind me, sorry, the second one?
Yes, if you see in the future both new space, private sector, and organization, or just one of them taking over?
No, of course, yes. And again, there are many regulation issues. There are international law, big issues. I mean, I don't know if you followed in the news. There is this kind of like thing where I believe it was the Russians that they said that they own Venus or something. That there is this idea that if you put your flag on a property in space, then it's yours. So who is going to own Mars? Who's going to own Venus or whatever, or that asteroid? There are legal and regulatory issues, and of course there are very important strategic issues. So of course governments will have a play, the agencies will have a big play, and probably the agency will keep doing the stuff that the private sector cannot do. I mean, if you have to really work on some moonshots, or for example, for pure research stuff. So as you know, one of the things will be the new generation post-Hubble machinery that will go into space, that will be able to collect data from galaxies, that trace back fundamentally to very few, to a very little time before the Big Bang, and it's a much deeper amount of data. This kind of stuff is not easy to commercialize, probably impossible, but it's, you know, it will make progress in science and all the basic science and research information that is needed.
Thank you, Gianluca. And this is a very interesting point, because this kind of dilemma are very typical. I mean, when a new sector, you know, starts and some of the rules are not already written, to say. There is another question from Giulio Avanzini. If Giulio can, you know, switch on the microphone and the camera.
Here I am.
Thanks. Okay, go ahead.
Just a second. And okay, I have a curiosity. The rocket launcher market accounts for, I think, something like 5% of the total value of space economy, which is a very small share. And in this respect, all the new machines that are being envisaged still rely on a relatively old way of launching payloads into space. Many small satellites are launched as secondary payloads on larger, on rocket launchers paid by larger missions. And in this respect, it's still not possible, I would say, to optimize the access to space for smaller payloads. On the other side, there's been many attempts to try to figure out some new ways of accessing space, which of course need a large amount of investments. But still, there is a recent failure by the Space America, if I'm not wrong, was the name of the company that was envisaging this sort of aircraft-based launching system. And so it looks like there's no effort to try to figure out something new for accessing space for smaller platforms. As an investor, how do you see the possibility of investing large amount of money for a totally new paradigm of accessing space for smaller platforms that apparently are the future of space services?
That's a good question. I mean, well, first of all, you know, if you look at the data, the ground equipment kind of stuff is one of the, you know, from the data that we have seen, it's like the biggest sector. So, you know, so for example, that's one of the topics of the new investment that we are making. That's 125 billion stuff in the upstream, if you look at the upstream. So it's pretty much as big as the downstream application revenues. And the downstream application revenues right now are television and stuff. So when you talk about the launch industry, it's kind of like a small sector. It's really often capital intensive. So again, we've seen, you know, a couple of projects that I was mentioning, and you know, the ticket just to look at it, it was like 100 million. So right now, again, if we see something interesting, of course, we always evaluate it. Especially, let me say that, I mean, we are interested in outliers in venture capital. We are interested in the people that take the unusual path, because if they win, you know, the rewards are going to be big. So again, if there are different kind of approaches, you know, very happy to, you know, to look at this kind of stuff. But the data tells us that, let's say, the bigger opportunities right now are in other sectors. Sorry about that. But then again, it's on the other side, let me say another thing. We are very opportunistic. You know, saying that we invest in space is pretty much anything. It's such a big, wide area. How can I say? If you're looking into a technology transfer project, for example, there is a team that is developing a superconductor battery that is very interesting because it's a solid state and it's not liquid state. So it's very safe and can be shaped. So you can make, you know, so the battery is actually the shape, and you can use it in cars, for example, in Formula 1, but you can also use it in space, where fundamentally the battery is the ship in a way. So again, we are very opportunistic. So I don't have a, you know, just an opinion straight on that specific. But again, if there is something interesting, we're very happy to look at it.
Thank you. My impression is that it's just a bottleneck in accessing space.
Yes.
So on one side, there's nothing new. On the other hand, it's still crucial. So it's a small share, but without launchers, you don't get to space.
No, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, and again, I mean, it really, you know, anything, if you think about a new opportunity that will arise in the sector, I mean, you know, it can be countless. I don't know if you've ever done it, but there is a very fun, I mean, at least for me, I'm kind of a geek, so I love this kind of stuff. There is one talk on YouTube where Elon Musk, it takes about an hour and a half to explain all the engineering challenges that they need to solve, and some are not solved at all yet, to colonize Mars in 30 years. That means 1 million people, a city. What are the challenges of doing that? And he kind of like tells the story of SpaceX and what they've been, how they came about, doing the idea and thinking that it was doable, but also to just counting out, okay, so if we need to do that, then we have this problem there, and we need to solve that, and that's not solved, and so on and so forth. It's really fascinating. So really into that agenda, you can really see the vision of many different opportunities that can be laid in the near term or more in the longer term, depending on how ambitious, let's say, you are as an entrepreneur.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Gianluca. Also, maybe this is a point about, an important characteristic of the space economy sector, which is very capital intensive, and maybe it needs both public investments and private investments. And the focus, the goal of these two types of investments are completely different. First one is maybe for, spreading the business. The second one is for, investing, for getting money, for getting revenue. So maybe it's about a focus. Maybe we have a time for another question.
But let me say one just quick thing about this, Umberto, because yes, you're probably right, and it depends on what it depends really on how you want to do it and you want to and where you want to go. Well, first of all, let me say that a lot of this technology, when we think about technology transfer, for example, we don't necessarily want to bring it on the market by building a company around it, but to license it to SpaceX or to whoever has the problem and needs the technology in their missions. So there is also this way to the market. But in general terms, yes, some projects are really capital intensive, but some projects from one point to the from a certain point of development, they can be funded with all kind of infrastructure funding, debt, long-term debt, all kinds of things. So we're looking at the project of building a satellite network of sensors for IoT, optimized for IoT. It's a global investment, totally at least 50 to 60 million. But a big chunk of that, we can just build it with project financing. So the equity part is something that is accessible to a network of a few investors like us, and really, deliver that.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. There is a question from Davide Vittori, right? Davide, are you here?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, please.
So first of all, I apologize for not putting the camera, but my connection is a bit unstable. So I have a question on the ecosystem, startup ecosystem in the country in Italy. So while there certainly are some space startups in Italy, I think we can all agree that the ecosystem is still quite limited. So we're not missing talent, and as you prove, there seems to be capital as well. So what do you think is the reason for this absence or for this limited ecosystem? Is it maybe the lack of ambition and inadequate regulatory system? And what do you think we can learn from countries such as the United States?
Yeah, okay. First of all, I think that it's mainly due to the fact that, again, there is a changing scenario that simply wasn't there, and it takes time to adjust, society and to be adjusted. So let me put it this way. It's not surprising we are making infrastructure investments right now with the fund for two reasons. One, first of all, of course, this infrastructure is being built right now, so there is a number of opportunities there. But also, this is fundamentally, let's say, the traditional space, the traditional domain of space. For example, the thing that where we think that's going to happen a lot in the next 2-3 years, where we plan to invest a lot with the fund, is the downstream stuff. And the downstream stuff, I think, is not developed yet. Simply startups and don't know that the opportunity is there, that this data is available. Often it is free. Most of this data is free, at least a big chunk of it, at least enough to, let's say, to do MVPs on a significant scale, improve your business models, and then go to raise capital. And we've done a survey in our own CRM with 10,000 startups that we've seen in the last 10 years. And we estimated at least 10 to 15% of them, and they were all digital, if they knew that the space data was there accessible, they could use it to implement new applications out of what they're doing. So we're going to work a lot on this as Primo Miglio, and we would like to collaborate very much with the Polytechnic on this stuff. So not only on the art, the technology, deep tech, infrastructure stuff that goes into space, but a lot into let's come up with ideas and people that want to address the opportunity of downstream that is really, really big. I mean, 125 billion right now, and the data part is just really at the beginning. And it's fundamentally ICT technology, so we know it, and we're very good at it. And like, what can we learn from the US? I mean, I think we are of course, the US is, how can I say, they had the vision, they had the infrastructure, and they privatized strongly the market. They gave a huge push to this, and capital there is widely accessible. I think we should find our specialties. We should find the stuff we're very good at. I was discussing with a friend from Sardinia that there used to be a very strong geology university. Actually, my father was a geologist, graduated in Cagliari because of the mines. And now geology, suddenly, look, it's becoming a space sector. And I've seen really interesting geology projects. So, but again, the downstream stuff, I would really encourage you guys that are engineers. I mean, unless you're really, into, the people that love the hardware and they love the electronics, and so that's okay. But then, if you look at it downstream, I'm sure you will find a huge amount of opportunity. And that, by the way, you can raise money not only with the space fund like ours, but with any digital fund, and that's the biggest sector of investors in venture capital globally.
Thank you.
Okay, great. So the talk is very interesting, and questions are also increasing. Maybe we have time really for the last one from Lorenzo Santoro. Lorenzo, can you switch on the camera? Or the
Good morning.
Okay, great.
Morning.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. I have two questions, and I apologize, but I only activate the audio to make the connection smart. So, what are the key factors that allow a company that wants to enter the new space economy to be successful? And how can we identify a company on the national territory that has such potential so that we can help this company to invest in this sector?
Okay. Well, that's easy. That's what we do. That's what we do all the time. How do you do a startup? There is, again, a lot of literature, a lot of practice right now. I would encourage to read certain books, to read Steve Blank, to read Osterwalder, participate in accelerators, come up with ideas at startup weekends. I mean, all the tools are there, and the critical factor at the end of it is, first of all, how big is the problem that you found, and how big is how can I say, how strong is the fit to market of the solution that you're building to this problem. That's always that. But then again, at the end of it, every investor, and it's true, will tell you the truth. And the truth is, when you invest early stage like us, is fundamentally the people, the team, the founders, the 2-3 guys, girls, whoever they are doing this thing. Do they own? Yeah, I mean, do they have the real technology? They know how to do it. They know how to sell it. How ambitious are they? They want to be in 10 years. How big is this? How far do they want to go? How crazy is this? How big is the solution and the investment thesis that we can build on top of it? And that's going to be also the key success factor for any initiative. Did I answer to both or just the first one? Lorenzo.
Thank you. And there is a smart strategy to identify such a company, or no, there is no a simple way?
It's a practice. I mean, after, you know, for the last 10 years, we have looked at least 1,000 business plans per year. So that's about 10,000. And we also have done our own business plans. I was an entrepreneur. I raised capital through venture and the stock exchange. So how can I say? First of all, you have some criteria. So, for example, the first thing that we look for in a pitch is how much does it fit our investment strategy at this moment. So right now we're looking at 2 investments at this moment. Just before the event, I was in an internal call, and they're both interesting, but we're going to do one of the 2 and not the other one, because the other one just doesn't fit right now our investment process. So if they would come to us 4 years ago, we would have done it. Now we don't, because we have a different, at this point, we're searching for certain kind of investments. And then after that, we really look into 100 projects per year. You know, so we really meet the team at least once or twice or 3 times sometimes before, you know, coming out with a proposal and closing 5 investments per year. So once you do that on a regular basis for 10 years, fundamentally you have your own criteria. But fundamentally, again, it's very much about the chemistry, you know, the psychology, trying to, you know, to see if you resonate, the team resonates with you, if we can work together, if you can add value as an investor, what are they going to need, and can I provide to them besides capital, I mean, you know.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, great. That's a good point. It's about entrepreneurship and, you know, financing. And maybe it's a good point for a next meeting, a next speech, because it's a huge topic and also relevant for, I mean, also for the PhD students that then may try to start their own business. So Gianluca, thanks again for joining us, for giving us this speech. That was very interesting, and I feel that also our students and all the people, all the participants feel that. So thank you again. We are on time, and I don't know if Marco wants to say something, but thanks again.
Oh, yes, Gianluca, I want to thank you for your contribution. You perfectly target the point. The objective of these talks was to inspire and excite the interest of PhD students. You know, all of us have their own research fields that sometimes are very far, not communicating between each other. So in order to be able to face the new problems in the aerospace sectors that are very complex and multidisciplinary, I think this is a very interesting way to interact and then maybe start new collaborations on topics that could be sometimes strange for us to imagine. So Gianluca, thanks again. I hope you can hear from you soon in another occasions. And yes. I also thanks all the participants to be here today. I just remember that we have 14 talks, 1 every 2 weeks. So from January to July 2021, we have this appointment every 2 weeks. So I hope to see all of you to the next in the next events. Thanks again, Gianluca.
Thank you very much, and thank you everybody. And again, best of luck for your lives and careers. And we are here to invest, so let us know. And again, we will try to collaborate as much as possible with the Politecnico to make this opportunity a reality. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.